Welcome back. I'm prepared to be bedazzled because today I'm going to be shedding light on why working most real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand will never provide a person with enough money to pay his bills. So why does this happen to be the case, you may ask? Without further ado, without further delay, without further procrastination, allow me to demystify that answer to that inquiry right here, right now. Lamentably, much to my dismay, much to my consternation, much to my chagrin, much to my grief, much to my agony, much to my agitation, and much to my irritation, most real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand are often deemed to be dead-end, highly contemplating, debilitating, minimum wage, dispiriting, unfulfilling, undesirable, harrowing, distressful, brutally wretched, and ineffably agonizing jobs that not only dispossess an employee out of almost of his sacrosanct time, but that also do not furnish him with anything close to even 1/4 of a subsistence wage for furthering housing. Furthermore, most real private sector employers are keen on not offering any benefits nor any pensions to their real private sector employees. Moreover, an exorbitant amount of real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand have hazardous employee working conditions. Most real private sector employers will cap the wages of their real private sector employees at the minimum wage threshold. They do not want to furnish the real private sector employees with emolument above the minimum wage threshold, since doing so is unconducive to allowing them to minimize their labor costs. Most companies are keen on minimizing the labor costs. Almost all the profits that companies generate are reserved for their executives, external directors, and shareholders. It is all the more easier for companies to furnish massive compensations to their executives if they are able to minimize their employee labor costs. Moreover, it is all the more easier for companies to furnish enormous retainer fees to their external directors if they're able to minimize their employee labor costs. Additionally, it is all the more easier for companies to maximize the wealth of their shareholders if they are able to minimize their employee labor costs. So, working most real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand is not conducive to allowing a person to pay his bills. The remuneration that he is apt to receive from working most real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand is capped at a minimum wage. The cost of living in the 21st century is exorbitant, and working most real private sector jobs based on voluntary demand for real private sector employers is unconducive to allowing a person to attain a mediocre standard of living. Most real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand are cumbersome to sustain working for a prolonged period of time and do not provide a means to attain financial stability nor financial security. They do not offer a pathway to receive a pension, and the remuneration they provide to real private sector employees is infinitesimal. You have a negligible amount of purchasing power if you receive a minimum wage from a real private sector employer. If you have a dearth of fiat currency, then it is going to be unconducive to allowing you to cover the cost of living. So, most real private sector employers, whenever furnish their real private sector employees with enough fiat currency to pay their bills, primarily because doing so is unconducive to allowing them to minimize their labor costs. Once again, to recapitulate, most real private sector employers are keen on minimizing their labor costs, and in order to do so, comes at the cost of the emoluments of their real private sector employees being fettered during their employee shifts to the extent to which they do not receive remuneration above the minimum wage threshold amid their employee shifts. If your remuneration is capped at a minimum wage, then it is not even going to be conducive to allowing you to attain even a low standard of living. You should work in worthwhile entrepreneurial capacities, and you should work in worthwhile entrepreneurial capacities that can potentially allow you to attain financial stability and financial security, and that also have an uncapped and unfettered earnings potential. You do not want your earnings potential to be undermined. You do not want your earnings potential to be capped. You do not want your earnings potential to be infinitesimal. You have the latent potential to generate extreme wealth as an entrepreneur if you are able to attain profound financial success by working in worthwhile entrepreneurial capacities. Pursue worthwhile entrepreneurial pursuits if you are eager to attempt to attain financial stability and financial security. I hope that you deem this video to be riveting, captivating, mesmerizing, enthralling, intriguing, and engrossing. By the way, I also wanted to add in one final insight as an addendum to this video, which is that when real private sector employers cap the emoluments of the real private sector employees at minimum wage, then it often culminates in them having an enormous employee attrition rate. Most people are deterred to work real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand, primarily because the emolument that they would receive from doing so would be in the form of a minimum wage. When you receive a minimum wage, it is almost tantamount to you working employee shifts for free, because minimum wage will furnish you with an infinitesimal amount of fiat currency. You need to earn a sizable amount of fiat currency to attain even a low standard of living. Once again, I hope that you deem this video to be eminently entertaining and no facets. Thanks for watching. Have a blissful day.